My name is Mabel, and I'm 28 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible daughter in my family. Not invisible because I was quiet or shy, but invisible because I wasn't Emma. Emma is my older sister. She's 32, beautiful, brilliant, and a doctor. Growing up, every report card I brought home, every award I won, every achievement I celebrated was met with the same response from my parents. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did you know Emma got the highest score in her class?" It was like living in a shadow that grew bigger every single day, no matter how bright I tried to shine. I worked hard my entire life. I studied until my eyes burned. I graduated with honors in finance from a good university. My professors told me I had potential, that I could go far in the corporate world. When I landed my first job at an investment firm, I was so excited. I called my mother immediately, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "Mom, I got the job. I start next month." There was a pause on the other end, and then she said, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Emma just got accepted into her residency program at City General Hospital. We're taking her out to celebrate tonight. You should come." I went to that dinner. I sat at the table while my parents toasted Emma's success, while relatives congratulated her while she glowed under all that attention. No one asked about my job. No one even remembered I had news to share. The years went by like that. I climbed the corporate ladder, working 60-hour weeks, missing holidays, sacrificing my social life to prove myself at work. I got promoted to junior analysts, then to senior analysts, then to associate director. Each time I would call home with the news, and each time Emma had done something bigger, something better, something more worthy of my parents' pride. At family dinners, my mother would introduce us to her friends like this. "This is Emma, our daughter, the doctor. And this is Mabel. She works in an office somewhere." That's how she said it. Somewhere. Like my job, my career. My entire life was just some vague thing happening in the background of Emma's story. The moment I knew I would never be enough came 2 years ago. At Emma's engagement party, my parents had rented out an entire restaurant. There were flowers everywhere, champagne flowing, people laughing and celebrating. My father stood up to give a toast, and I remember sitting there, thinking maybe, just maybe, he would mention me too. Maybe he would say something like, "We're so proud of both our daughters." But he didn't. He raised his glass and said, "At least one of our daughters made us proud. At least we got something right." The room erupted in laughter and applause. Emma blushed and smiled, and I sat there, frozen, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. I left early that night. I told everyone I had a headache, but really I just couldn't breathe in that room anymore. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried harder than I had cried in years. Not because I was jealous of Emma. I loved my sister. I cried because I realized the truth. No matter what I did, no matter how successful I became, I would never be the daughter my parents wanted. I would always be the disappointment. 6 months after Emma's engagement party, something incredible happened in my life. I got promoted to associate director at Sterling Financial, one of the most prestigious investment firms in the country. I was 26 years old, and my boss told me I was the youngest person to ever hold that position in our department. When he shook my hand and congratulated me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Real, genuine pride in myself. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. Maybe this would be big enough. Maybe this would finally make them see me. I called my mother that evening. My heart was racing as the phone rang. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. I just blurted it out. "Mom, I got promoted to associate director. They said I'm the youngest person to ever get this position. Can you believe it?" There was silence on the other end. Then my mother said, "That's nice, dear. But I have to tell you something exciting. Emma just got published in a medical journal. It's a real medical journal, Mabel. Her research is going to help people. We're so proud we could burst." I felt my smile disappear. My hand holding the phone started to shake. "Mom, did you hear what I said? I got promoted. This is a really big deal for me." She sighed like I was being difficult. "Yes, Mabel, I heard you. That's wonderful. We're happy for you. But surely you can understand that what Emma is doing is more important. She's saving lives. You're just moving numbers around on a computer. It's just moving numbers around. That's what my mother thought I did. After that phone call, I stopped sharing my achievements with them. I stopped calling with good news. I stopped trying to make them proud. What was the point? But then something strange started happening. Something I didn't expect. My parents began telling people that I was struggling, that I couldn't hold down a job, that I was lost and directionless. The first time I heard about it was at my cousin Rebecca's wedding. I was standing near the dessert table when I overheard my mother talking to my Aunt Linda. They were just a few feet away, behind a tall floral arrangement. They couldn't see me, but I could hear every word. My mother was saying, "We're so worried about Mabel. She just can't seem to find her way, you know? We're supporting her financially because she's between jobs again. Emma keeps telling us to let her figure it out on her own, but we're her parents. We can't just abandon her." I stood there frozen, holding a piece of cake I would never eat. Between jobs again? Supporting me financially. I had never asked my parents for a single dollar since I graduated college. In fact, I was making more money than most people my age. I was building a career, a life, a future. And my mother was telling our family that I was a failure. I walked over to them, interrupting their conversation. "Mom, can I talk to you outside?" Aunt Linda looked embarrassed, like she knew I'd overheard. My mother followed me to the parking lot, her face tight with annoyance. "What is this about, Mabel?" I was having a conversation, stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why did you tell Aunt Linda I'm unemployed? Why did you say you're supporting me financially? You know, that's not true." My mother crossed her arms. "I didn't say you were unemployed. I said you were between jobs. There's a difference. Not between jobs, Mom. I have a great job. I just got promoted, remember?" She looked at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Mabel, we're just being realistic. Compared to what Emma does, your little office job isn't something to brag about. We're trying to save you from embarrassment." Save me from embarrassment. Those words echoed in my head for weeks. After that conversation in the parking lot, something inside me broke. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that made me scream or cry or fight back. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of breaking that happens when you finally stop hoping for something you'll never have. I decided to protect myself the only way I knew how. I disappeared from their lives, slowly, carefully. Like pulling away from a flame before it burns you completely. For the next year, I became a ghost in my own family. I attended only the holidays I absolutely couldn't avoid. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Emma's wedding. I would show up, smile politely, answer questions with 1 or 2 words, and leave as early as possible. I stopped talking about my life entirely. When relatives asked what I was doing, I would say, "Oh, just working," and change the subject. My parents seemed relieved by my silence. It made their lies easier to maintain. And during that year of silence, something extraordinary was happening in my career. I was promoted again, this time to senior director. I was overseeing major accounts, managing a team of 12 people, making decisions that affected millions of dollars. But at family dinners, I was still just Mabel, the daughter who worked in an office somewhere. The lies my parents told grew worse. So much worse. My mother joined the Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, and she started posting about me there. I only found out because my old high school friend Jessica sent me screenshots. "Mabel, is everything okay? Your mom is posting some concerning stuff." I opened the images and felt sick. My mother had written, "Please keep my daughter Mabel in your thoughts. She's been unemployed for several months now and is struggling to find her path. It's hard as a parent to watch your child make poor choices. Unemployed for several months. Poor choices." I stared at those words until they blurred. That same week, I found out my parents had told people at their church that I'd been let go from my job for performance issues. They told their book club that I was living off their charity. They were rewriting my entire life, turning my success into failure. And I wasn't even there to defend myself. The worst part came when Emma called me one Tuesday evening. I was in my apartment reviewing a presentation for the next day's board meeting when my phone rang. Emma's voice was gentle, the way you talk to someone fragile. "Mabel, I wanted to call and check on you. Mom told me you've been having a hard time financially. I know things haven't been easy for you, and I want you to know I don't judge you for struggling. We all struggle sometimes." My hand tightened around the phone. "What exactly did Mom tell you, Emma?" She hesitated. "She said you'd been asking them for money, that you couldn't pay your rent last month. Mabel, I want to help. I can lend you some money, no strings attached. You don't have to be embarrassed." I felt something crack inside my chest. My own sister believed I was failing. My own sister, who I'd loved my whole life, thought I was broke and desperate. And the cruelest part was that I could hear the pity in her voice. That gentle, loving pity that made me want to scream. "Emma, I'm not struggling. I haven't asked Mom and Dad for money. I have a good job. A really good job." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Mabel, it's okay to admit when things aren't working out. There's no shame in it. You don't have to pretend with me." She thought I was lying. She thought I was too proud to accept help. I hung up without saying goodbye. And I sat there in my expensive apartment with my expensive furniture and my six-figure salary. And I cried. Not because I was sad anymore. I cried because I was angry, furious. And for the first time in my life, I wanted revenge. 3 weeks after Emma's phone call, I was sitting in the executive conference room at Sterling Financial when my boss, Richard Harrison, walked in with a bottle of champagne and the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Mabel, close the door," he said. My heart jumped into my throat. In the corporate world, champagne and closed doors means one of two things. You're either getting promoted or you're getting fired. And the champagne usually tells you which one it is. Richard poured 2 glasses and handed me one. "The board met this morning. We've been watching your performance over the past 3 years, and frankly, you're exceptional. You're strategic, you're innovative, and your clients trust you completely. So we've made a decision." He paused, and I held my breath. "We want to promote you to Vice President of Client Relations. At 28 years old, you'll be the youngest VP in the company's history. Congratulations, Mabel." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, holding that glass of champagne, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. Vice President, the youngest in company history. This was everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed for, and the first thought that entered my mind wasn't celebration. It was pain, because I knew my parents would never celebrate this with me. Richard explained that the promotion would come with a significant salary increase, stock options, and a corner office on the 40th floor. But there was one more thing. The company wants to do a press release. This is a big deal, Mabel. Youngest VP ever. The media will love it. We're thinking local news coverage, maybe some business publications. Our PR team wants to make this a story about breaking barriers and young leadership." He looked at me carefully. "They'll want to interview you, maybe talk about your background, your journey. Are you comfortable with that?" That's when the idea hit me. It came to me so clearly, so perfectly, that I almost laughed out loud. My parents had spent 2 years telling everyone I was unemployed, struggling, asking them for money. They'd told the neighbors, the church, our relatives, even Emma. They'd built this entire narrative about my failure. And now the press was going to come asking about my success. I looked at Richard and smiled. I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, I have some ideas about the personal angle for the story. Over the next few days, I worked closely with Monica, our PR director. She was excited about the story, already drafting press releases and reaching out to local news stations. "We want to make this relatable," she said. "Not just another corporate promotion story. We want people to connect with you, Mabel. Tell me about your background. What drives you? Did your family support your career ambitions?" I chose my words very carefully. My family has always had high expectations. My parents are very traditional. They value certain types of success over others. It hasn't always been easy, but it's made me work harder. Monica's eyes lit up. That's perfect. The underdog angle. What if we included your family in the story? Maybe interviewed your parents about their reaction to your success. It could be really heartwarming. I pretended to think about it. Inside, my heart was racing. You know, that's an interesting idea. My parents still live at the family home where I grew up. I could give you their address. I wrote it down for her, my hand completely steady. They might be surprised by a visit from the press, though. They don't always understand what I do for work. Annika smiled. Surprised parents are the best. We love capturing those genuine reactions. This is going to be wonderful, Mabel. For the next 2 weeks, I watched and waited. I watched my mother post on the neighborhood Facebook group about her unemployed daughter who refuses to take life seriously. I screenshot every single post. I watched my father tell his golf buddies that I was living in a tiny apartment, barely scraping by. I listened to voicemails from Emma, still offering to help me financially, her voice filled with concern and love. And I didn't correct any of it. I let them build their lies higher and higher, brick by brick, until the tower was so tall that when it fell, everyone would see the crash. The morning the news crew arrived at my parents' house, I was in my new corner office on the 40th floor. I had a view of the entire city, floor-to-ceiling windows that made me feel like I was floating above everything. My desk was mahogany. My chair was leather. On the wall behind me hung my new nameplate, Mabel Chen, Vice President of Client Relations. I sat there with my coffee, my phone in my hand, watching the live stream that Monica had sent me. Thought you'd want to see your parents' reaction in real time. She'd texted with a smiley face. She had no idea what she was about to witness. I watched the news van pull up to my childhood home. It was a Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock. My mother would be having her second cup of tea, probably still in her robe. Maybe on the phone with one of her friends from book club. The doorbell camera showed everything. I watched the reporter, a woman named Sarah Chen, no relation, walk up to the door with her cameraman. She was holding a microphone and a folder with my press photos. My mother opened the door and I could see the confusion on her face. She was indeed still in her robe. Mrs. Diana Chen. Sarah asked, smiling brightly. My mother nodded, her hand going to her hair self-consciously. Yes, that's me. Can I help you? Sarah gestured to the camera. I'm Sarah Chen from Channel 7 News. We're here to do a story on your daughter, Mabel. She's just been promoted to vice president at Sibling Financial, making her the youngest VP in the company's history. We wanted to get your reaction and maybe ask you a few questions about raising such a successful daughter. I watched my mother's face drain of color. She actually took a step back, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I'm sorry. There must be some mistake, she said, her voice shaky. My daughter Mabel doesn't have that kind of job. She works in an office doing administrative work or something. You must have the wrong person. Sarah looked confused now. She opened her folder and pulled out my official press photo, the one where I'm standing in front of the Sibling Financial logo in my Navy suit. Is this your daughter? Mabel Chen, 28 years old. My mother stared at the photo. I could see her hands trembling. That's her, but there must be some mistake. Mabel doesn't have a real job. She's been unemployed. We've been supporting her. The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah's professional smile flickered for just a moment. She glanced at her cameraman, and I could see her journalist instincts kicking in. This wasn't the heartwarming story she'd expected. This was something else entirely. Mrs. Chen, I have the press release right here from Sibling Financial. Your daughter is making over $200,000 a year, not including bonuses and stock options. She manages a team of 15 people and oversees accounts worth millions of dollars. Are you saying you didn't know about any of this? My mother's face went from pale to red. This can't be real. Mabel would have told us. She would have said something. That's when my father appeared in the doorway behind her, still in his pajamas. Diana, what's going on? Who are these people? Sarah turned to him. Mr. Chen, we're here about your daughter Mabel's promotion to vice president at Sibling Financial. Your wife seems surprised by this news. My father's face went through the same transformation as my mother's: shock, confusion. Then, something else. Anger. He pushed past my mother and grabbed The press release from Sarah's hands. He read it, his face getting redder with each line. Then he looked directly at the camera and said, "Where is she? Where's Mabel? Did she put you up to this?" Sarah, now clearly sensing a bigger story, said gently, "Mr. Chen, we can call her if you'd like. She gave us this address as her family home and suggested we interview you about your reaction to her success." She pulled out her phone. "Would you like to speak with her?" My father snatched the phone from her hand. I watched him dial my number with shaking fingers. My phone rang on my desk. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. "Hello." My voice was calm, professional. "Mabel, what the hell is this? What kind of game are you playing?" My father's voice exploded through the speaker. I put him on speakerphone, so Sarah and the camera could hear everything. "Hi, Dad. I'm not playing any game. The reporter is there to interview you and Mom about my promotion. I thought you'd want to share in this moment with me." There was a strangled sound on the other end. "You manipulative little. How dare you humiliate us like this?" Camera. I took a sip of my coffee, looking out at the city below me. "Humiliate you? Dad, I haven't done anything to you. You're the one who told everyone I was unemployed. You're the one who said I was asking you for money. The reporter is just fact-checking your claims. I thought you'd appreciate the truth finally coming out." The story aired 3 days later. I was in my office when Monica called me, her voice breathless with excitement. "Mabel, you need to see this. Channel 7 didn't just run a promotion piece. They did a full investigative segment. It's going viral." I opened my laptop and watched the segment titled "Local Woman Becomes Youngest VP at Sterling Financial Despite Family's Doubt." But it was so much more than that. Sarah Chen had done her homework. She'd interviewed my colleagues, who spoke glowingly about my work. She'd gotten footage of me presenting at a board meeting. And then she'd included the interview with my parents. The footage was devastating. My mother standing in her robe saying I didn't have a real job. My father red-faced and angry, calling me manipulative on camera. And then Sarah's voiceover, calm and journalistic. When we asked Mabel's parents about the discrepancy between their claims and reality, they had no comment. However, we obtained screenshots from a neighborhood social media group where Mrs. Chen repeatedly claimed her daughter was unemployed and seeking financial help. These posts were made while Mabel was managing multi-million-dollar accounts at one of the city's most prestigious firms. The segment ended with Sarah asking me directly, "Mabel, why do you think your parents didn't know about your success?" And my answer, carefully chosen, "I think sometimes parents have a vision of who they want their children to be. And when reality doesn't match that vision, they rewrite the story to make themselves feel better." I stopped trying to fit into their narrative. I just lived my truth. The aftermath was immediate and brutal. The Neighborhood Watch Facebook group exploded. People who had pitied me, who had donated to food drives my mother claimed were for me, who had offered their condolences about my supposed failures. They were all furious. Mrs. Patterson, who lived 2 doors down, posted Diana Chen. "You stood in my kitchen and told me your daughter was struggling to pay rent while I was going through chemotherapy. You took my sympathy, my time, my emotional energy, and it was all lies. I'm disgusted." The comments multiplied. Dozens of people sharing their own experiences with my mother's lies. My father's golf club quietly asked him to take a leave of absence. My mother's book club uninvited her from their meetings. Aunt Linda called my mother and their conversation apparently ended with Linda saying, "You made me feel sorry for you. Diana, you made me worry about Mabel, and all along, she was out there being extraordinary while you were tearing her down." What kind of mother does that? Emma called me the day after the story aired. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. "Mabel, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I believed them. I thought you were struggling and you were too proud to ask for help, and all this time, you were thriving. You were amazing. And I didn't even know my own sister." We met for coffee that afternoon. I brought my laptop and showed her everything. Every screenshot of Mom's Facebook posts. Every lie they'd told. Every time they diminished my success to make themselves feel better about their own narrative. Emma sat there, staring at the evidence, tears streaming down her face. They did this to both of us, didn't they? They made me the golden child and you the scapegoat, and it almost destroyed our relationship. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I should have questioned their story. I should have known you better. Can you forgive me? I squeezed her hand back. Emma, you were manipulated just like everyone else. They're our parents. We're supposed to trust them. But yes, I forgive you. I've missed my sister. My parents tried everything to fix the damage. First, they sent me 7 voicemails in one day. My mother crying, begging me to call the news station and retract the story. My father demanding I fix this mess you created. I deleted them all without listening to the end. Then they hired a lawyer who sent me a letter threatening to sue me for defamation. I forwarded it to Sterling Financial's legal team, who laughed and sent back a response that essentially said, "Truth is an absolute defense. Try again." 2 weeks later, my mother showed up at my office building. Security called me from the lobby. "Ms. Chen, there's a Diana Chen here claiming to be your mother. She's asking to see you." I looked out my window at the city below, at the life I'd built with my own hands, with my own determination, despite everything they'd done to diminish it. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I said. "Tell her I'm always in a meeting." But my father's final voicemail, the one that came a month after the story aired. I listened to that one all the way through. His voice was different, quieter, broken. "Mabel, it's Dad. Your mother and we've been doing a lot of thinking. We've lost friends. People look at us differently now. And I guess we're finally understanding what we did to you. All those years, we never saw you. We had this idea of what success looked like, and when you didn't fit that picture, we rewrote you. Made you smaller so we didn't have to face our own failures as parents. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying, we're sorry we never saw you. We're sorry it took the whole world seeing you before we could finally open our eyes." I saved that voicemail. Not because I planned to forgive them. Not because a single apology could erase years of being invisible, years of being diminished, years of having my life rewritten into a failure story to soothe their egos. I saved it because it was proof. Proof that the truth had finally reached them, even if it came too late. I still work at Sterling Financial. My office still has that incredible view. Emma and I have dinner every Thursday now, and we're learning who we are outside of our parents' expectations. She's started setting boundaries with them. So have I. My parents send birthday cards now, careful and formal, like they're writing to an acquaintance they once wronged. I don't respond. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty about what happened, about exposing them so publicly, and the truth is, I don't. I didn't expose them. They exposed themselves. I just stopped hiding their lies with my silence. I stopped making myself smaller to protect their fragile narrative. I stopped being invisible. If you've ever been the invisible child, but disappointment, the one whose achievements were never quite enough, I want you to know something. Your worth isn't determined by who sees it. Your success isn't less real because someone refuses to acknowledge it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply live your truth. So loudly that the lies can't survive in the same space. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Mabel Chen, Vice President of Client Relations at Sterling Financial. And I'm done being anyone's disappointment. If this story touched you, you've ever felt unseen in your own family, leave a comment below. Share your story. You're not alone. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and your power. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to be erased.